Picture this. You're hacking your way through an insanely dense, humid rainforest.
Okay.
I mean, the air is so thick you can practically drink it. Every time you take a step, you have to pause to peel blood-sucking leeches off your legs.
Not exactly a relaxing vacation.
No, not at all. And you're actively dodging giant, armor-plated millipedes and venomous snakes that just blend perfectly into the leaf litter.
It's basically an alien world down there.
It really is. We are dropping you straight into the deep, undisclosed jungles of Sri Lanka today. We're pulling from this incredible on-the-ground expedition video that honestly feels more like an action movie than, a biology lecture.
Yeah, the footage is just wild.
Right. We're riding shotgun with Dr. Ranil Nanyakara. He's a top conservation biologist leading this nonprofit called BEAR, which stands for Biodiversity Education and Research.
They do amazing work.
They really do. And the mission for today's deep dive: to find and document at least 40 completely unknown species of animals before they vanish from the face of the earth forever.
You're stepping into an ecosystem that operates by its own ancient, brutal rules. It is a literal race against the clock to catalog this biological dark matter.
Okay, let's unpack this, because why are we keeping the exact location of this jungle a heavily guarded secret? And, what does it actually take to save a species that the rest of the world doesn't even know exists?
Well, the stakes couldn't be higher.
Absolutely. I mean, the footage from this expedition makes it look like they landed on another planet. There's this unbelievable density of life happening in every single frame.
It's teeming with it.
Yeah. At one point, the camera pans to this butterfly that has just emerged from its pupa. Its wings are still totally folded and wet. Then you turn your head, and there's a highly specialized lizard casually devouring a dragonfly.
Like its cycle of life right in front of you.
And then you have to navigate past these massive clusters of carnivorous pitcher plants. They are filled with dead insects.
Yeah. The sheer biomass those pitcher plants consume in this specific microhabitat is staggering. I mean, you're looking at a hyper-competitive environment. Every inch of space is a battleground for resources.
Wow.
So when you walk through the middle of that, you're bound to have some incredibly tense encounters.
Tense is an understatement. At one point, they're sifting through the underbrush and they come across a pipe snake.
Ah, yeah, the pipe snake.
Right, which is a species found absolutely nowhere else on Earth. It's completely harmless, lives underground, but local communities often kill them purely out of fear.
Which is such a tragedy, because they're completely benign.
Exactly. So Dr. Renil's team actually catches them alive, uses them for educational demonstrations with school kids, and then releases them. It's a great conservation win.
It really is. Education is huge there.
But literally in the same stretch of jungle, just casually, they encounter a crate.
Oh man, the crate. The margin for error drops to absolute zero when a crate is introduced.
It's terrifying.
They are nocturnal, so during the day they might seem a bit, sluggish, but they possess a incredibly potent neurotoxic venom.
Mm-hmm.
If you accidentally step on one or handle it wrong in the dark, the venom aggressively targets your nervous system. It leads to rapid muscle paralysis and, respiratory failure.
And the expedition team is just standing there filming it. You have a 1-hour window if you get bitten. Maximum.
That's it.
If you do not receive intense, specialized antivenom within 60 minutes, you die. And remember, you are deep in an uncharted jungle where you had to take a helicopter just to get near the perimeter.
Yeah, there's no ambulance coming for you out there.
None. That extreme logistical risk makes Dr. Ranil's track record all the more remarkable. I mean, between 2009 and 2019, his organization discovered 68 new species.
That is a staggering number for one organization.
It is. We're talking spiders, scorpions, snakes, amphibians, and even mammals.
And they aren't stopping anytime soon.
Right now, on this specific expedition, they are zeroing in on what will be the 16th newly discovered gecko species in Sri Lanka, and a completely brand new species of tarantula.
The biodiversity there is just unmatched.
But watching this intense, dangerous footage, I had a thought.
Yeah.
If these animals have survived just fine hidden away in this jungle for millions of years, why do we need to interfere?
That's a very common question.
Right. Why go in there with flashlights and cameras at all? If it's a secret, why not just leave them alone?
Leaving them alone operates on the assumption that the jungle is a sealed vault. And unfortunately, it isn't. The outside world is already bleeding into these untouched zones.
Which brings us to the most, honestly, infuriating part of the expedition.
Yeah, this part is tough to watch.
They're hacking through the brush, exhausted, looking for these rare tarantulas, and they stumble onto a literal crime scene.
Completely ransacked area.
Deep in the middle of nowhere, they find freshly dug up spider burrows. The earth is just overturned. The homes of these undiscovered species have been completely destroyed.
What's fascinating here is that the illegal exotic pet trade moves faster than academic science.
Really, faster than the scientists.
Oh, absolutely. Poachers are not hunting these spiders for sustenance, They are supplying a highly lucrative dark web of global collectors.
Wow.
A collector in Europe or North America will pay exorbitant sums for a living status symbol, a pet no one else has.
But wait, how do poachers even know what to look for if science hasn't named or described the spider yet?
They rely on underground intelligence. Poachers will scout local villages for rumors of unusual spiders.
Oh.
Or they look for unique color morphs that don't match known species.
Yeah.
Once they find a localized population, they strip mine the habitat.
That is awful.
They rip the animals out, completely destroying the burrows and the surrounding microecosystem. And then they smuggle them out of the country using falsified captive-bred customs declarations, or honestly, simply hiding them in luggage.
Hiding venomous spiders in luggage. That is insane. So this is exactly why the location of the jungle has to stay totally off the grid.
Exactly. The second you drop a pin on a map, the illegal traders descend.
Right.
Combine that organized poaching with rampant deforestation, encroaching agriculture, and a total collapse of BEAR's funding post-COVID. You have an ecosystem on the brink of silent extinction.
It's incredibly grim. Poachers are stealing ghosts, basically. Animals that don't officially exist yet.
That's a good way to put it.
So how do you fix it? You can't just put up a fence and call it a day. The answer to fighting back, surprisingly, is a massive stack of high-stakes paperwork.
Yes, it is the scientific method weaponized for direct conservation.
I love that phrase.
It is a rigorous, demanding six-step process to pull a species out of the biological dark matter and into the light.
Let's walk through this because watching it play out feels like a detective montage.
It really does.
Step 1 is the field exploration. This is the exhausting hunt. You are battling mosquitoes, humidity, those awful leeches, just trying to spot the creature.
It takes days, sometimes weeks, of just pure observation.
Right. And once you finally find it, you hit step 2, specimen collection. To prove to the scientific community that a species is new, you absolutely have to bring a physical specimen back to the laboratory.
And this is where Dr. Ranil's approach is really unique. Standard practice for generations of field biologists has been to euthanize the animal immediately in the field to preserve the physical structure.
Which makes sense from a purely academic standpoint, but
Dr. Ranil completely rejects that methodology.
he captures them alive.
Yes, he creates a specialized microhabitat in his Hilltop Research Lab, which also serves as an education center, and he just waits. He feeds and cares for the animal until it reaches the end of its natural lifespan. Only after a natural death does it become a scientific specimen.
That level of respect for the wildlife is incredible, but man, that must make the process take so much longer.
It adds years to the timeline
I
sometimes.
bet. Well, once the animal passes naturally, we enter step 3, morphological examination, the microscope work. And there's a chemical reality here that blew my mind.
The preservation issue.
Yes. When you preserve a dead specimen in alcohol, which is like the global standard for this stuff, it completely destroys the pigment proteins. The specimen loses all its natural color and just turns red.
Exactly. Without high resolution, live action photography from step 2, you have zero baseline for what the animal actually looked like in the wild.
That makes those field photos so important.
Crucial. The alcohol preservation keeps the physical architecture intact, but you lose the visual identity entirely.
Got it.
That's why they have to document every microscopic hair, the reproductive organs, the fangs, and the stridulating organs under high-powered lenses.
I was looking into those stridulating organs. They're basically the parts spiders use to make sound, right?
Yeah, like a defensive hiss.
And under a microscope, they look like tiny biological washboards or combs. They're incredibly complex.
They're like fingerprints for the species.
So once they map all of that out, they move to step 4, comparative analysis. This is the globe-trotting phase.
Right. You have to definitively prove your spider is not just a weird-looking variation of something already cataloged.
Which sounds tedious.
Very. If there are, say, 7 known species in a specific genus in Sri Lanka, you have to compare your new specimen against the holotypes of all 7.
A holotype being the feet.
The single physical specimen designated globally as the ultimate reference point for that species.
And those holotypes aren't just sitting down the street in Sri Lanka.
No, not at all. They might be locked in a drawer in the Natural History Museum in London or an archive in Paris.
Ah.
You have to physically travel there, request access, and check your spider's microscopic washboards against a specimen that might have been preserved 150 years ago.
That is wild. And if the visual proof isn't 100% bulletproof, that's when they pull out the big guns for step 5. Molecular analysis, DNA sequencing.
You have to. Nature is full of cryptic species, and convergent evolution is a massive hurdle.
Explain convergent evolution real quick.
Basically, you might have 2 spiders that look completely identical under a microscope because they both evolved the same fang structure to eat the same type of prey.
Okay, that makes sense.
But genetically, they might have diverged millions of years ago.
Yeah.
They aren't closely related at all.
So they extract the DNA, run a polymerase chain reaction to amplify the genetic markers, and prove the spider is genetically unique.
Exactly.
Once that is undeniable, you reach the summit. Step 6, publication. You write the research paper. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, the funding issue.
Yes, because writing the paper isn't the hard part. It's getting it published in a credible, peer-reviewed scientific journal like Nature, Science, Zookeys, or Zootaxa. And publishing in these journals costs a staggering $3,000 to $4,000 per paper.
It is a brutal financial bottleneck, especially for a nonprofit operating on a shoestring budget.
This is where I have to push back, like really push back.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you are a conservationist and you have $4,000 sitting in your bank account, why on earth are you handing it over to an academic publisher for a PDF?
I know how it sounds.
Why not use that money to physically protect the jungle? Buy camera traps, hire armed guards, build fences. Why drop it all on paperwork?
You have to think of the published paper as legal armor.
Legal armor.
In the eyes of the Sri Lankan government, international law, and global conservation bodies, an animal without a peer-reviewed scientific name is a ghost.
A ghost.
It does not exist. You cannot petition a government to declare a valley a protected national park to save a ghost.
Oh, wow. You can't write a law to protect something you can't name in the legislation.
Precisely the issue. You cannot secure international NGO funding, and you cannot build sustainable research tourism around an undocumented rumor.
It's all about the bureaucracy.
Documentation forces the species into the legal framework of reality. It triggers global awareness, which unlocks funding, which then buys the camera traps and the fences.
Okay, that clicks.
Without step 6, the poachers win. Because there is no legal mechanism to prosecute someone for stealing a species that technically isn't there.
Okay, that completely flips the perspective. The PDF is literally the foundation of their survival.
It's the only way forward.
But how do you actually pay for all of this when the funding has evaporated? Like we mentioned earlier, COVID hit them hard.
Very hard.
This brings us to what I can only describe as the ultimate flex: crowdfunding conservation.
It's a brilliant modern solution.
The YouTube creator behind the expedition video didn't just show up to point a camera, they actively funded the entire documentation process for one of these animals.
The breakdown of how far that capital goes in the field is a fascinating look at the economics of modern conservation.
Let's look at the numbers. The total donation was 15 lakh rupees, which is roughly 18,000 US dollars. Let's break down exactly what that buys. First, you have 5 lakhs dedicated just to field assistance. This covers 2 to 3 months of salary, their base camp accommodation, and the brutal transport costs like chartering those helicopters to bypass the impassable jungle terrain.
Right. You need a dedicated, highly trained team. One biologist cannot map a jungle canopy alone while watching their footing for crates.
Yeah, that sounds like a death wish. Then you have 1.5 lakhs allocated for those global museum visits we talked about, flights, accommodation in London or Paris, and archive access to compare the holotypes.
It all adds up quickly.
It really does. Another 5 lakhs goes purely into lab equipment. High-end macro lenses to photograph the live specimens before the alcohol ruins their color, and the specialized microscopes to map out the fangs and washboards.
It requires laboratory-grade precision happening in a hilltop hut. That equipment isn't cheap.
Right. And then there's 3 lakhs to cover that massive paywall just to get the paper published.
The legal armor.
Exactly. But the most brilliant part of this entire budget is the final one, lakh rupees. This money is used directly to hire and train the local villagers who live around the perimeter of the jungle.
This flips the economic incentive structure of the entire region.
How so?
Well, local communities often kill venomous wildlife out of fear, or they might be tempted by the lucrative payouts to act as guides for illegal exotic pet poachers.
Because they need the money.
Right, but by hiring them as forest rangers, you provide a respectable, sustainable income.
You literally build an army of guardians from the community up. They learn how to identify the rare species, they understand the value of keeping them alive, and they become the ultimate frontline defense.
It's grassroots conservation.
If a smuggler shows up trying to locate a tarantula burrow, the locals know exactly who to call. It's brilliant. And as a reward for funding this entire life cycle, from the helicopter ride to the microscope to the publication, the donor gets something incredible in return.
Oh, the naming rights. There is a strict, universally respected rule in the world of taxonomy.
What's the rule?
You cannot name a newly discovered species after yourself.
Seriously?
It is considered an incredible breach of scientific etiquette. You must honor someone else, a mentor, a historical figure, or the person who made the discovery financially possible.
That's amazing. Because it costs roughly $4,000 to fund an entire species documentation process, Dr. Rennell offers to name one of these 40 unknown species after the donor.
It's a fantastic incentive.
And remember, there are undocumented rats, scorpions, snakes, and even a species of fish waiting in that jungle.
So much still waiting.
In the video, the brand new species of tarantula they tracked down is being named Poecilotheria rethi, specifically to honor the YouTuber Drove Rethi for his contribution.
What a legacy.
Think about that. Your name permanently etched into the scientific record, attached to an alien-looking tarantula that was hiding in a Sri Lankan rainforest for millions of years.
It is a permanent legacy that ensures the species actually gets to have a future, rather than just disappearing into a smuggler's plastic container.
So, what does this all mean? When you strip it all back, true conservation isn't just taking pretty photos of lions on a safari. It is incredibly gritty, exhausting work.
Lots of mud, lots of sweat.
Lots of leeches. It's a mix of muddy boots, peeling off those leeches, dodging venomous snakes in the dark, and navigating the fiercely expensive bureaucratic world of scientific journals.
Yeah, that's the reality of it.
It's about fighting an invisible war against illegal pet traders by using microscopes, DNA swabs, and peer-reviewed papers as your weapons. That is all for today's deep dive. Keep exploring, stay curious, and maybe watch where you step in the jungle.
And if we connect all of this to a much larger picture, there is a lingering thought here that should fundamentally change how we view these undocumented ecosystems.
What's that?
When a species goes extinct before we even find it, we aren't just losing a visually interesting spider or a rare gecko. We are losing a biological library.
A library?
Consider the venom of that crate or the unique digestive fluids of those pitcher plants. These animals have spent millions of years engaged in chemical warfare, evolving highly complex proteins and neurotoxins.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Hidden within the venom of an unnamed snake or the saliva of an undiscovered mammal might be the exact molecular blueprint needed to synthesize a cure for Alzheimer's, or a revolutionary new painkiller that isn't addictive.
Wow.
When a species vanishes into the exotic pet trade before science can even give it a name, we are permanently burning a library of ancient, irreplaceable chemistry, long before humanity ever had the chance to check out a single book.